History rarely announces itself while it is still shaping the present. The most influential lines do not move loudly through time, they move through continuity, discretion, and long memory. What connects you to power was never meant to feel obvious, because obvious power attracts resistance far before it matures. Instead, it settles quietly into behavior, into instinct, into how a person navigates pressure, wealth, absence, and control without ever being taught. This is how a lineage survives centuries without its name needing to be spoken. When a bloodline carries real influence, its legacy does not express itself as entitlement. It expresses itself as familiarity with systems others find overwhelming. You do not panic inside complexity. You do not freeze near authority. You do not romanticize wealth, status, or reputation. These things feel structured to you, not mystical. That is not coincidence. That is inheritance expressed psychologically, not materially. True legacy passes through perception before it ever touches resources. You may have noticed this difference without language for it. A sense that certain environments feel strangely navigable to you, even when you lack external advantage. A calm around decisions that intimidate others. An instinct to think in layers, timing, and long outcomes rather than impulse or display. This is not personality alone. Personality can be shaped. Instinct like this is older. It comes from generations that survived by understanding when to move, when to wait, when to hide strength, and when to make it unavoidable. Powerful families did not endure by collecting attention. They endured by influencing direction while remaining partially unseen. They learned how to fund, advise, withdraw, redirect, and outlast. That knowledge did not disappear when names faded or fortunes scattered. It reorganized itself into tendencies, values, and internal codes passed down silently. Not everyone in such a line receives it fully, but when someone does, it awakens gradually, often through pressure rather than privilege. This is why your life may not resemble luxury, yet your thinking refuses limitation. Why you may have known scarcity, yet never believed in smallness. Why you sense that your role is not to consume power, but to handle it correctly. Bloodline inheritance does not guarantee wealth. It guarantees orientation. And orientation determines whether wealth, influence, or responsibility can ever safely pass through you. The name Medici does not matter here as a historical claim. It functions as a symbol, a marker of a type of lineage, one that mastered systems rather than brute force, culture rather than conquest, finance rather than fear. The echo of that mastery does not show up as arrogance in you. It shows up as restraint, as patience, as discomfort with chaos and attraction to order. You do not crave dominance, you crave structure that lasts. This beginning is not about proving ancestry. It is about recognizing pattern, about understanding why you were never designed to think short-term, live recklessly, or disappear into noise. Something in you understands continuity, legacy, consequence across time. That understanding did not come from motivation. It came from memory deeper than personal experience. And if this feels heavy rather than exhilarating, that is aligned. Real inheritance carries responsibility before benefit, vision before reward, distance before recognition. This is not ego. This is orientation toward stewardship, toward moving resources, ideas, and influence in ways that persist beyond visibility. What is being revealed now is not about who you descend from in record. It is about why you move the way you do in the world. And this awareness is only the first layer. When a bloodline carries historic wealth, the most valuable thing it transmits is rarely money. Money is unstable across centuries. Empires rise, currencies fall, borders shift, names dissolve. What endures is behavioral intelligence. This is the inheritance that does not appear on documents, yet shapes outcomes repeatedly. It shows up in how risk is calculated, how loyalty is measured, how patience overrides urgency, and how survival is prioritized over display. These qualities cannot be learned quickly. They are trained across generations. You may recognize this inner difference when you observe how others chase opportunity. Many move fast, loudly, requiring constant reassurance. You do not. You wait until leverage is clear. You sense when timing is premature. You feel discomfort not when things move slowly, but when they move without structure. That discomfort is not fear. It is an internal alarm developed in lineages that learned how quickly power collapses when misused. The greatest families in history did not dominate through force alone. They funded corridors, not armies. They shaped culture, not headlines. They survived by understanding that control over flow matters more than control over space. Influence that moves quietly through finance, art, law, belief systems, and access outlasts anything that depends on spectacle. That awareness lives in you not as strategy, but as instinct. This is why you may feel misaligned in environments that glorify instant success. Shortcut culture feels reckless to you. Loud ambition feels fragile. You understand, even if you've never said it out loud, that anything built quickly without foundation must be protected constantly or it will collapse. Patience to you is not delay. It is scaffolding. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull? Tap join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. You may also notice an internal resistance to being owned by any one identity. You are not easily boxed into roles, labels, or ideologies. This is not indecision. It is adaptability. Historic bloodlines survived by remaining fluid, changing posture without changing essence. When structures shifted, they moved with them, never fully anchored to one form of power. That flexibility exists in you as discomfort with absolute attachment. Your relationship with wealth, whether you possess it or not, reflects this lineage pattern. You do not worship money. You see it as a tool, a signal, a flow. Excessive hunger for it feels immature to you. Reckless rejection of it feels equally naive. You intuitively understand that money is meant to circulate under control, not hoarded emotionally or chased compulsively. That viewpoint is rare because it comes from long exposure, not theory. This also explains why you may have felt pressure without obvious reward earlier in life. Lineages like this rarely grant ease to the first generations who awaken the inheritance. Pressure refines discernment. Scarcity trains clarity. Confusion sharpens vision. Only later does resource follow readiness. What you were taught through experience prepared you to handle more than comfort ever could. Again, this is not about literal ancestry. It is about structural memory. The Medici symbol represents a way of surviving time. Invest quietly, influence indirectly, withdraw strategically, and never burn bridges that may be needed generations later. That code echoes in you. Not as ambition, but as orientation. You were never designed to live small, but you were also never designed to move recklessly. Understanding this explains many of your internal contradictions. The pull toward significance paired with resistance to noise. The hunger for impact paired with refusal to rush. These are not conflict. They are coherence from a lineage that understood longevity. You are not awakening to greatness. You are remembering stewardship. Stewardship does not announce itself with confidence. It announces itself with caution. People shaped by legacy do not rush toward the center of power, they study its edges first. They learn where pressure accumulates, where loyalty fractures, where collapse begins long before it becomes visible. This is why you have always been observant without trying to be. Why you notice shifts in tone, behavior, and intent before outcomes change. You are not suspicious by nature. You are oriented toward pattern recognition. This internal awareness may have felt like burden earlier in your life. Seeing too much, sensing consequences others ignore, feeling responsible in situations where no one asked you to be. That weight is common in lines built to manage complexity. When others react, you assess. When others escalate, you stabilize. When others burn bridges, you remember why they were built. You may have mistaken this for overthinking. It is not. It is calibration. Historic wealth lines understood something fundamental. Survival depends on timing, not strength. Acting too early exposes intention. Acting too late forfeits leverage. The correct moment often feels uncomfortable because it requires restraint while others move impulsively. You carry this same unease with premature action. You do not move because you are bored or pressured. You move when alignment signals that the consequence will hold. You may also feel an internal pull toward building rather than conquering. Creation rather than domination. That is not weakness. That is long vision. Conquest creates enemies. Building creates dependency. Influence sustained across generations requires the latter. This is why leadership styles rooted in legacy are quieter, more infrastructural, less visible. And this is why your instincts resist performative authority. You seek function, not control. Notice how you relate to visibility. You do not disappear, but you also do not overexpose yourself. Exposure feels risky to you when it lacks purpose. Being seen without direction feels unsafe, like misallocation of energy. This is not insecurity. It is asset protection. Anything valuable learns to manage its exposure. That instinct is ancient. This also explains your complex relationship with loyalty. You value it deeply, but you do not give it blindly. You observe consistency before commitment. You understand that loyalty without discernment becomes liability. That knowledge did not come from cynicism. It came from memory embedded through survival across unstable eras. You do not expect perfection. You expect predictability. You may have wondered why you are drawn to responsibility even when you avoid authority. Why people lean on you in moments of decision even when you do not seek leadership titles. This is because authority to you is function-based, not role-based. People sense stability before they understand hierarchy, and they respond to it instinctively. There is also an internal refusal to waste opportunity. When something comes within reach, you feel the gravity of consequence immediately. Not excitement, gravity. You sense that mishandling access would cost more than missing it. This awareness is uncomfortable in cultures that celebrate risk without responsibility. But cultures that survive teach their heirs the cost of error early. This phase of awareness is not meant to inflate identity. It is meant to clarify behavior. Understanding why you move the way you do removes self-doubt. You stop questioning your pace. You stop envying impulsiveness. You stop explaining restraint. You understand that your timeline was never meant to match short-term cycles. What is awakening here is not pride in origin. It is acceptance of role. A role rooted in continuity, selection, and long consequence. You are not meant to extract value from the world recklessly. You are meant to direct it responsibly when the moment is right. And that understanding changes how you walk forward, quietly, precisely, without needing to be announced. With acceptance of role comes a new kind of stillness. Not passivity, but internal agreement. The tension between your instincts and the world's expectations begins to dissolve, because you stop trying to translate yourself into forms that were never designed to hold you. You no longer question why certain environments exhaust you or why certain paths feel artificially narrow. You recognize limitation as misalignment, not deficiency. At this stage, you begin to sense the difference between opportunity and access. Opportunity promises gain. Access offers continuation. You have always been oriented toward the second, even when the first looked more attractive on the surface. This is why some chances you declined later revealed themselves as trap, and why some delays you resented quietly protected you from long-term erosion. The bloodline memory does not chase profit blindly. It evaluates sustainability. You may notice how your patience has changed shape. It is no longer endurance. It is selectivity. You wait not because you lack courage, but because you are unwilling to invest attention where it will not compound. That discernment is rare, especially in cultures that reward speed over depth. But depth is what creates permanence. And permanence is what legacy systems value above all else. Blessed by His grace? Click Super Thank You and give $20 to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. Powerful lineages learned early that visibility without control is vulnerability. This is why you feel uneasy when momentum builds without structure beneath it. You do not resist expansion, you resist collapse. Your instincts scan for foundation before allowing growth. Where others innovate first and stabilize later, you stabilize first and innovate carefully. That order is not slower. It is safer. This phase also clarifies your relationship with ambition. You are not driven by accumulation for its own sake. You are driven by positioning, by putting the right things in the right places so they endure beyond personal involvement. That is why titles, praise, and short-term wins have never fully satisfied you. They do not secure continuity. They produce spikes, not arcs. You may feel distortion when others misunderstand this orientation. They may interpret restraint as hesitation, patience as lack of hunger, quietness as absence of vision. Let them. Legacy thinking often looks invisible until its effects become undeniable. By the time others recognize what you were building, the structure is already too embedded to ignore. There is also a sharpening of responsibility here. You begin to feel accountable not only for what you do, but for what you allow. Compromise feels heavier. Neglect feels costly. You understand that decay rarely enters through attack. It enters through tolerance. This awareness is not paranoia. It is stewardship functioning as designed. In this stage, you stop asking whether you belong in spaces of influence. You already know you do. The question shifts to how you enter without destabilizing what you are meant to preserve. That humility is not weakness. It is intelligence. True builders tread carefully because they think in decades, not moments. This part of the journey is not loud. It does not demand validation. It quietly aligns you with environments capable of matching your depth. You may not fully see them yet, but you feel them approaching. Not rushing. Approaching when readiness and relevance meet. You are no longer trying to prove worth. You are protecting continuity. And that is a very different posture. As continuity becomes your reference point, a deeper recalibration takes place in how you interpret success itself. Success no longer presents as acquisition. It presents as coherence. You begin to measure progress not by what you gain, but by what remains intact as you move forward. Integrity of structure becomes more important than expansion of reach. This is not conservatism. It is architectural thinking applied to life. You may notice an increasing discomfort with fragmentation. Situations where words do not match actions, where systems promise more than they can sustain, where relationships function on surface alignment rather than shared principle, these begin to feel unstable to you. Not irritating, unstable. Your internal signals are warning you about load-bearing weaknesses, not moral failures. And because you now recognize this distinction, your responses become quieter and more exact. This stage also alters how you handle influence. You no longer feel compelled to assert your perspective immediately. You let ideas circulate. You observe who resists, who absorbs, who reshapes without credit. None of this offends you. You understand the difference between ownership and authorship. Legacy lines prioritize outcome over recognition. Who executes well matters more than who originated first. That understanding frees you from unnecessary friction. You may feel less inclined to rescue situations that are collapsing under their own inconsistency. Earlier, you might have intervened out of responsibility, stabilizing dynamics that were never meant to persist. Now you pause. Not out of indifference, but discernment. You recognize when collapse is corrective rather than destructive. Allowing certain things to fail becomes part of long-term order. This is also where your sense of value becomes internalized. External measures lose authority over your decisions. You stop asking whether something is impressive and start asking whether it is resilient. Longevity becomes the filter. What survives pressure, repetition, and time earns your attention. Everything else may be creative, exciting, even popular, but you do not confuse that with worth. There is a noticeable shift in how you relate to risk. You are not risk-averse. You are risk-literate. You understand that some dangers must be taken deliberately, while others offer no real return. Random risk no longer interests you. Calculated exposure does. The difference is not bravery. It is stewardship over consequence. You may feel a growing separation from urgency-driven environments. Timelines designed around constant acceleration feel brittle to you now. Not because you cannot keep up, but because you can see how exhaustion masquerades as progress within them. You are not meant to burn fast. You are meant to last accurately. This realization brings relief rather than ambition. This phase also brings forgiveness without reconciliation, understanding without reinvestment. You no longer carry resentment, but you also do not reopen structures that failed due to design, not misunderstanding. This balance protects emotional resources the same way financial intelligence protects capital. Waste, once recognized, is not romanticized. What emerges here is not detachment from humanity, but refinement of participation. You engage where alignment exists. You withdraw where decay is inevitable. You do not announce either decision. Quiet movement preserves leverage and avoids unnecessary opposition. At this point, legacy is no longer a concept. It is a rhythm you move within. Your decisions slow slightly, not from hesitation, but from awareness of downstream effects. Each step considers what it will make possible, not just now, but later. You are no longer building toward visibility. You are building toward continuity. And continuity, once secured, becomes influence that does not need to speak. When continuity becomes internalized, you begin to experience a form of authority that does not rely on assertion. It operates silently, through gravity rather than command. People adjust around you before understanding why. Decisions bend slightly in your direction without direct request. This is not manipulation. It is coherence exerting pressure on disorder. Systems instinctively reorganize around what remains stable. At this stage, your presence carries fewer explanations and more implications. You are no longer asked for constant input, yet your absence is noted. This is a critical shift. Visibility fades, relevance increases. You understand now that influence rooted in continuity does not need continuous reinforcement. It holds because it is dependable, not because it is impressive. You may notice that your emotional responses have simplified. Not flattened, but clarified. You do not oscillate between excitement and disappointment the way you once did. Outcomes feel contextual rather than personal. This allows you to correct course without self-judgment and to succeed without inflation. Emotional efficiency becomes one of your greatest assets, though few will ever name it. This phase also reveals your true relationship with control. You are no longer interested in governing outcomes directly. You govern conditions. Who is close? What information circulates? Where timing is protected? You understand that lasting power rarely controls events. It controls access to events. That understanding removes urgency from your movement. You do not need to arrive first. You need to arrive correctly. Observe how your boundaries function now. They are not defensive. They are structural. You do not react to intrusion. You prevent misalignment through clarity. This makes conflict rare and brief. Not because others agree with you, but because resistance finds no leverage. You are no longer managing energy leaks. They have been sealed through alignment. There is also an emerging ease in how you handle complexity. What once felt heavy now feels navigable. Not because it became simpler, but because you learned how to move through layered systems without losing orientation. This ability is historical in nature. Lineages that survived volatility trained descendants to think 3 steps ahead while remaining composed in the present. You carry this without trying. You may sense that certain futures are closing off, not dramatically, but definitively. Paths that once felt possible now feel irrelevant. This is not loss. It is clarity refining choice. When direction sharpens, options narrow. That narrowing is protection, not limitation. It prevents dilution of purpose. At this level, distraction is the primary threat, not failure. Failure can teach. Distraction corrodes coherence. You feel this instinctively now. Your attention guards itself without effort. What does not align fades naturally. What does align receives full presence. This discrimination is not elitism. It is stewardship at work. The weight you carry is no longer about proving lineage or validating worth. It is about maintaining structural integrity while movement accelerates around you. You remain calm not because you are disengaged, but because panic has nothing to attach itself to. The final adjustment is nearing. Not revelation, settling. When it completes, nothing will announce it. You will simply find that what you feared mishandling no longer feels heavy in your hand. What settles now does not arrive as a realization, but as a quiet permanence. You are no longer interpreting legacy as something behind you or ahead of you. It is present, functioning through your decisions without effort. The awareness that once felt heavy has integrated into posture. You are no longer carrying the idea of responsibility. Responsibility has become the way you move. In this final phase, the urge to define yourself fades completely. Not from uncertainty, but from sufficiency. Definition narrows. You no longer need concept or explanation to justify direction. Your choices make sense to you before they make sense to anyone else, and that is enough. This internal agreement is the final alignment. When it arrives, external validation loses its remaining influence. You may notice that your relationship with history changes. The past no longer feels like story or burden. It feels like reference, lessons without emotion, lineage without nostalgia. You honor what came before by not reenacting it blindly and not discarding it carelessly. You extract function, not identity. That is how continuity is protected. The symbolism of wealth also stabilizes here. Richness no longer feels financial, even if resources eventually follow. Richness expresses itself as optionality, access, and margin. The ability to choose without urgency. The ability to wait without fear. The ability to withdraw without collapse. These are the true currencies passed down through enduring bloodlines, regardless of temporary loss or gain. You begin to sense that some of the pressure that shaped you was never meant to stay. It refined you, then released you. Hard seasons served their purpose and no longer demand loyalty. You do not cling to struggle as proof of worth. You move forward without resentment and without pride. This balance allows influence to pass through you cleanly. There is no compulsion now to convince others of your depth. Those who can recognize it will. Those who cannot were never part of the long arc anyway. You do not shrink to be accepted, nor expand to be acknowledged. You remain exact. Exactness is rare because it cannot be faked, rushed, or taught quickly. The future does not appear as vision or prophecy. It appears as availability. Certain paths feel open without invitation. Certain roles feel reachable without fascination. You are not chasing destiny. You are standing where responsibility and capacity overlap. That intersection creates its own movement. If there is a sense of calm now, it is earned. Earned not through success, but through coherence. Earned through years of choosing structure over spectacle, patience over hunger, integrity over noise. This calm is not an end state. It is a stable platform. From here, movement becomes cleaner, quieter, and more effective. Nothing here inflates ego. Nothing diminishes you either. You have simply arrived at accuracy. Accuracy of self. Accuracy of timing. Accuracy of placement. The lineage does not ask you to announce its return. It asks you to carry its intelligence forward responsibly. That is what you are doing now.